This is a public service announcement. Save your bees.
Save your bees.
Save your bees. It's too cold for your bees, Rich. Simon Sherlock says it's due to be the coldest night of the winter so far this year. And although it isn't that cold, I've put all my bee nesting tubes in the fridge to keep them warm. I normally reckon on only doing this when it's near to -10. But if they're stating -7, then I think we're close enough, especially with the fact it's been such a prolonged cold spell. So hurry out and collect your nesting tubes. They'll be fine in the fridge for a few days.
Wow. So does he go any further? Does he elaborate on why a bee is prone to certain death if it freezes for such a long time?
Probably for the same reasons that you are likely to experience certain death if I froze you to -10 for a long period of time.
And as you haven't got your goat socks on, it could be today.
Indeed.
No, the thing is though, Rich, we're short of bees, aren't we? So wouldn't it be a pity if they all froze in the garden? So I got mine in my oak nesting department and said to Farmer Phil, clear out the fridge, I need to put them in. And he looked in the fridge and do you know what he found there?
Tenants extra?
No. Any other guess, Alison?
A bottle of port.
No. What was it, Farmer Phil?
Well, you ought to bear in mind that Hev had been in the fridge, and in the fridge I found the Ecover all-surface cleanser. Being kept nicely cool and conditioned, ready for action.
Welcome to podcast 165 from the Wiggly Sofa. I'm Heather and I'm joined today by...
Farmer Phil.
Richard.
Oh, Richard, you've gone all posh.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Anyone else
And
here?
Alison.
Hooray! And on this week's show, we've got Plant of the Week, Decade, Millennium.
Hey, yes,
What is
it's
it?
White beam.
Fantastic tree, a white beam.
Is it? Well, we'll hear about that later. Also, Ricardo and Farmer Phil go and see New Calf, Newborn, New Year.
That was lovely, wasn't it?
It was, because it's a glorious day today. Really sharp frost, blue sky, sun in the cattle yards, fantastic.
They skipped off at the yard, hand in hand, off to see the calf.
I don't
Can I
think
show you my calf, Richard? Said Phil, quietly, to one side.
Okay, Farmer Phil.
Richard had got his Christmas pullover on, and didn't he look smart?
He did look smart. We've also got the RSPB Big Garden Birdwatch details coming up. And we've saved your bees, so all is well in Wiggly World. Al, tell us about Plant of the Week.
Yeah.
White beam.
Plant of the week is white beam, Sorbus aria. We have one in the Wiggly Garden, which is quite a nice sample of a white beam tree. I don't know, how long's it been in your garden?
Quite a nice sample, Al.
A nice sample.
It's a stunning tree. Is that one of yours? Did you grow that,
No.
the one in the Wiggly Garden?
No, we didn't buy off her then.
No, that's far too old.
So the one in the Wiggly Garden's too old, according to you, Al, for you
Yeah.
to have propagated it.
Well, we supply them at about 2 or 3 year old. There's this one in front of us, Rich. Quite
So
a nice
you
one.
guys go through all sorts of lengths to get seeds to germinate, don't you?
Yeah, we grow everything from seed, which is quite a lengthy process, especially supplying trees at 2 year old.
Some are presumably easier to grow than others.
Some are. Some seeds need heat treatment and cold storage for a year,
And what about
maybe
these guys?
longer.
Are they pretty easy
That's
to...
not too bad.
I mean, I know you're not going to give any of your secrets away. I'm not trying to get some secrets when you show us.
No, you can
all
have
go
a
and
good
go and
go,
see.
yes.
But say, if, for instance, a fantastic specimen that's in the Wiggly Garden that's probably older than Phil. How old is that? How old is the one in the garden, Phil?
Well, since I planted it 15 years ago, I'm quite gratified that you think it's older than me.
Mental age. They meant mental age.
That's right. Yeah. No, that was one that Colin Brown, who used to live next door, he got a nursery and he bred that one.
Right.
But they're great because they've got such a distinct shape with a sort of nearly pointed top and a rather sort of pear drop shape, haven't they? Although it's like a bushy pear drop.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place. I remember you remember in the summer when we had the open day and the guys were demonstrating a beehive and whatnot underneath it, and all the kids were sat in the shade underneath these wonderfully, well, they're kind of a triangular shaped wide silver leaf, aren't they? Beautiful.
Their leaves are a little bit the same shape as the tree itself, aren't they? They've got a pointed end, and they're sort of like a fat pear drop.
And they're very white underneath, quite sort of almost powdery underneath and furry.
And isn't it handy that the birds don't like the berries much?
Yeah, you can actually eat the berries.
Can you?
If you leave them until they're almost rotten, you can eat them. But if you eat them before they go sort of rotten, they're quite poisonous and cause you to sit on the toilet for a very long time.
Frugal fishbone. Have you tried this?
No, oddly, I know. No, I can't. No, because I don't really like the idea of A, being poisoned or B, eating rotten fruit. So,
Did you enjoy my Christmas present, birthday present?
I did enjoy your birthday present. I did it. It was very kind. Actually, I thought it was very sweet.
Well, what was it?
Heather, I walked in, and as I was sort of clearing my desk, and I saw this nice little bag on the top there, and there was a nice card in there, which was one of those birthday cards you always want to get, you know. So I had the card, and inside the bag there was a book, and guess what the book was called?
Frugal.
Thrift. Thrift. It didn't say how to be thrifty or anything, it just says thrift, which is good because I don't need a real guide on how to be thrifty. But it's great. So there's some fantastic reading in it. It's a cracking little book, in fact.
Corking.
So yes, thank you for that.
So, getting back to this white beam, what about wildlife, Rich? Do they support anything?
They do. Do you know what? There isn't one single species of tree that doesn't support some form of Lepidoptera larvae, you know. I mean, you say about your oak and silver birch, and it's true that those species of tree will support hundreds of different types of invert. But it's the diversity, that we're talking about. You know, kind of moth or butterfly larvae.
Oh, right.
And now, I know for a fact that you've just looked up on your funky little machine that you've got on your lap and found out all sorts of larvae that like to feast on the thick leaves that the whitebeam sports.
The short-cloaked moth. The small species, wingspan 15 to 20 millimetres, with grey or brown forewings with black basal areas which resemble a short cloak when the moth is at rest, are supported by the whitebeam.
There you are, you see. So yeah, it's all important. I mean, it's all about diversity, you know. And if you can plant beautiful indigenous species like whitebeam in the garden, far better that than some dodgy, invasive New Zealand or Southeast Asian thing that doesn't look any better and will cost you 3 times as much.
Guess what your cogs were made of on your wheels?
Whitebeam.
Well done, Richard.
I was going to say oak.
Silly old sausage.
And they are quite fast-growing trees. Some people put them in hedges when they're planting a new hedge, or in the garden, as we got here at Wiggly Wigglers.
When do you plant? How do you look after it? And what are you expecting? Because, no offence, Al, but once again, you've brought a twig in, haven't you?
It is a twig, Hef, but it hasn't got any leaves, obviously, because it's deciduous. So you can plant it all year round because that's container grown.
Would you use one of those in your garden?
I think whitebeams are probably one of our prettiest indigenous trees. Yeah, they're wonderful. Yes, I definitely recommend one in a garden. It's not something that gets too big either. That's the beauty of it. I mean, it's something that's not lost in this garden. You know, we're quite lucky that the garden's of a reasonable size, but it looks the part, doesn't it? You know, so you don't have to worry about it getting massive and shading your neighbour's garden. You know, it's something that you can prune. You can get. I mean, obviously, if you do prune, then you have to do it year on year, but it's something that you can prune and will respond relatively well to that.
We'll have never pruned ours, will we?
No, but they're not like an oak tree or an ash tree, so it doesn't tend to have a main stem up the middle. It's more like an overgrown shrub, isn't it? It's got lots and lots of branches which make this dense canopy, and it's not a massive height or width, it's quite a modest tree.
It has amazing rare flowers in the summer as well. So it's got the flowers in the summer and then the berries in the winter.
Do you think it'll flower more if you prune it harder?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
Any practical use to it?
such as...
Well, can I use the wood for anything?
Why would you want to cut down your ornamental tree?
It's taken about 15 years to grow.
Planting.
I read on Wikipedia it's good for wood turning. So
Whittle.
but obviously you two don't know.
Cut down and whittle away the nicest feature in Wiggly Garden.
And there we go. We
That's
have a massive
idea.
gap in the garden.
It does provide a lot of shit. The birds seem to like it, I think, because it's got so many perches in it, but you always see birds in them, won't you? And they do like them.
It's a good shelter place for
And
birds
the other thing
as well.
is, of course, we should be planting trees. And if we plant nice-looking trees in the garden, that's fine. Let's have some of those. They don't have to be all oak trees that we plant. And so that we'll fix our bit of carbon through a hornbeam or a white beam or whatever it is.
Diversity is the key, isn't it, Phil?
Absolutely. Sustainability, responsibility.
As well you don't
all
know.
those words that you apply to me every time you think of me, Rich.
Montycast. A weekly cast on Montiness. No, Montycast.
A weekly fact on wiggliness. It is a good idea to hang up a cabbage in your chicken run. The hens can peck at it to help prevent them getting bored. Another Montycast, a weekly fact on wiggliness. Next week.
Over to Facebook, where June Saddington has come up with a brilliant idea. But just before we go to that, here's Richard Pike's comment. He says, "Here's looking forward to a new Wiggly year of excellent podcasts. Keep up the good work and let's have more Rachel and less Farmer Phil."
That's right, that's it. Oh, did you feel a little bit hurt when you first saw that, Phil?
I did, yes. But then I thought, who is this Richard Pike?
You're not made of stone, are you, Phil?
I thought,
Well, there's been a few responses. Here's one. Megan says, "I like Farmer Phil's perspective and contributions, even though I garden mostly organic myself." And then here's
see,
Simon.
that's a balanced view. I've got to give her that.
And then here's Simon. "Me too. Save Farmer Phil. Although I agree more Rachel, as she sounds just as fit as she looks. Of course, she's very knowledgeable as well. So I thought we could have a vote in the room of saving Farmer Phil or not."
I quite like sitting next to Rachel because she touches my knee all the time.
So is that a no from
So,
you?
well, actually, but on balance, I would miss abusing Phil. And
If you're expecting me to touch your knee, you've got another thing coming.
Boyish like
holding
arguments.
hands, fair enough.
Having our spats and making up is the best thing, isn't it,
Oh,
Phil?
absolutely.
Okay, votes for saving Farmer Phil. Hands please up.
Hey!
He's saved because he's got two hands up. So off they go, skipping up the yard, hand in hand, Farmer Phil and Ricardo to the cowshed.
Well, I've just walked around the corner of the cowshed. It seems like a long time since I've been around here, and it's such a nice day. It's beautiful. You can see the white mist blowing from the cow's nostrils. And Phil, you lucky boy, you've got your firstborn of the year.
Yeah, we've had 3 or 4 calves now the last couple of days, and this one was one born this morning.
Right.
Literally a few hours old now, and is resting in the sun, and by the looks of it, we're going to have another one in the next hour or
Yeah,
so.
there's all sorts of things going on here.
They're all a bit confused and
Is
going
it a
round.
little boy or a little girl?
It's a little girl, the calf,
Right.
by Adin, the Charolais bull,
Right.
and her mother is a MRI, a Meuse Rhine Issel,
Okay.
which to you is like sort of like a shortish dairy cow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was going to say, George, you mean one of those short dairy cows?
That's the one.
Yeah, great.
And the cow that's moithering about there is a Hereford Friesian cross, and I would say
There's some interesting things going on here, because when I walked around I could see the calf just kind of chilling out, steaming, because it's just obviously still drying, and it's laying out on this lovely bed of straw in the bright sunshine. You know, it's obviously recovering from its ordeal. And there are 2 cows moithering over it. One which I can see she's given birth because of her rear end, and another one which is kind of really nuzzling this this calf.
Well, the other one is about to calve,
right.
And so her maternal instincts are kicking in, and you can see that she's uncomfortable. There's stuff going on, but her maternal instincts that she's trying to lock onto that calf because she thinks any calf will do. So in a minute I'll part her out so that she actually can concentrate on the job in hand. Natural events will actually probably overtake her because in a minute she'll lie down. She
is trying to bed down. She's almost making this nest, and I can see a whole bunch of mucus hanging out from the derriere. Is that her water's broken?
No, they haven't broken yet. That she'll produce the first thing that happens a few days ago. There's a big sort of plug of mucus which is in the cervix, in the entrance to the womb.
Right.
That comes out first, and that's very thick and quite cloudy usually. And then when they start to calve, you'll get a clearer, thinner mucus, which is just essentially lubricant. That's what it's there for.
Right.
And the first thing you'll see is the water bag, or the complete placenta with the fluid in it.
Okay.
And then that'll burst, and you'll be able to see the feet of the calf then. But that'll happen a little bit later on. But obviously she's experiencing the first contractions now.
Did you have to help with the birth of this calf?
I did have to help with that one. I'm not quite sure why that we got to the point of having 2 toes visible and then nothing much seemed to be happening. But it is quite a big calf.
Yeah.
And so rather than risk having a problem, I did help with that one.
Right.
But the other 3 that we've had so far, they calved on their own perfectly happily.
Do you know what you're going to get before? Because I know sheep farmers tend to scan their sheep before they have lambs to get an idea of how many lambs they can expect from each animal.
We test them to find out whether they're in calf and to find out how far in calf they are. So roughly speaking, we know when they're going to calve and we know if they're going to calve.
Right.
But we don't... The twins only happen about 1% of the time, so that we don't bother to scan for those.
So it's pretty rare in cows then.
So it doesn't happen very often. It's more important to know that they're in calf, and you can do that with a normal manual pregnancy test.
Yeah.
This is actually quite interesting because I was just saying to you, we've got, and this isn't by anything more than luck, we have what I call, she's like a helper cow. She acts as a nanny.
Right.
And she is brilliant to have with the young heifers who've never had calves.
Okay.
Because she will lick the calf, clear the mucus away from its mouth. So if the mother doesn't actually know what to do and gets a bit confused in all the excitement, if she's there, she'll save the calf's life.
Right.
But she has no issues about ownership of the calf. So she's already licked that calf clean and half dry, and now she's quite happy to see that it's all right with its mother, no problem.
Yeah.
And she's a very valuable beast in many ways because she will save lives, very handy things to have.
That's quite a contrast from the animal that you and I... Well, it's not difficulties, but she was kind of getting in on the act last year when you had to help that cow calf, and she was really trying to eat the placenta and make the most of the opportunity.
Oh yeah, they do have quite a strong instinct to eat the placenta, and some of them aren't fussy whether it's their own placenta or not. But the real issue and where problems can occur is if you get something in between the bonding process of mother and child.
Right.
Now, although we've got a little bit of that going on here, the bonding's already happened.
Okay.
So that cow can moither about, but in a minute events will overtake it and she'll have her own calf, and she'll forget about that then, and it'll all be all right. It's quite interesting watching these instinctive behaviour patterns actually acting out in front of you.
Absolutely, because this animal now, the one that's just about to give birth, is trying to force the other one away, the real mother, away from the calf.
It all seems to work out all right in the end. It's very rare. I think on 1 or 2 occasions we have had cows that have managed to swap calves.
Right.
Just purely through this situation.
Yeah.
So that the one will latch onto the other, one will calve, and they just swap because they...
And that's okay.
Well, it works. If you happen to know that they've swapped, it's as easy to leave them swapped as it is to try and swap them back. I know that.
Right.
As long as both calves get their colostrum, which is the mother's first milk, then there's no issues with them swapping if they want to. And then later on, there is a certain amount of multiple suckling goes on because hungry calves will grab milk where they can get it from.
Yeah, sure.
And
it's a beautiful thing. Do you ever get... I suppose are you sort of conditioned to this now? I mean, you've been doing it for so many years. Are you a bit blasé about the whole calving thing?
You can't be too blasé about it because then, like all animals, something will come back to bite you.
Right.
So that it's all very well standing around saying, oh, it's a natural process, I don't need to get up in the morning to go and have a look, and I don't need to go out in the cold at night to go and have a look. You can bet your life that the time that you don't go and have a look, something will go wrong.
Right.
And, in the wild, things do go wrong, and that's perfectly natural. But for us farming, we try to minimise things going wrong because that represents profit. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, sure.
It is unpleasant. It's unpleasant to see the animal distressed or whatever, but it is actually perfectly natural.
Right.
But the will for a farmer to make sure, if he can, that nothing goes wrong is partly welfare driven and partly business driven.
But you wouldn't. I mean, you don't make money out of these animals, do you? Really? I mean, they're not. It's not. How much? So, how much is it going to cost you to get this calf to a point at which you can make a sale?
Very interesting question, that, because essentially it doesn't cost me a great deal because I grow my own food for the cattle,
right,
bar minerals and one or two concentrates. We grow the grass that they'll eat during the summer.
Right.
So by the time I get to sort of 6 months from now, when I sell that calf, you could say that it's cost me the rent of an acre of ground, for the sake of argument, £100, plus the opportunity cost of some food and straw and some labour.
Right.
I won't say it's the most profitable thing we ever do, but it fits so well with the rest of the farming.
Yeah, it does seem complete, doesn't
it? It's not unprofitable, and this year prices have been very good for our store cattle, so that, even if we've suffered weather-wise on the rest of the farm, the cattle have done all right, and the calves have been worth good money this autumn, so no complaints.
It'd be nice to think that the strength of the euro, I mean, whilst it obviously makes our foreign holidays a little bit more expensive, might do good things for British beef.
Well, it'd be a nice thing to think that fluctuation in the exchange rates might actually remind people that it's not a bad idea to buy stuff at home for a start.
Yeah, for sure.
We all like to go on holidays and we recognise that they're going to cost a bit more, but we'll perhaps be looking at going on holiday in Cornwall when that sort of flippant trip off becomes too expensive. I don't know. And the same thing the other way around, that when you're buying your food, I suspect you will notice that the imported foodstuffs will become more expensive.
Absolutely.
Purely on the basis of the exchange rate.
Yeah.
Sadly for us, the costs of farming, energy and the like have meant that the price of foodstuffs generally are having to go up a bit. But as we've said before, it's about the integrity of what you produce and getting that information to the consumer so that he or she can make their choice then.
Well, it's a lovely thing to see. Thanks, Phil.
Let's go in the warm.
Shall we? Cup of tea.
I just had a thought. It wasn't you, Rich, was it? Because your name's Richard Fishbourne, and the Richard Pike who wanted to get rid of Farmer Phil is Richard Pike, and a pike is a fish.
There's a certain closeness there, isn't there? Uncanny, have.
If I were to dump a load of silage effluent in the water, that'd knacker a pike, wouldn't it?
I think you and your kind have done that repeatedly all over the country for generations, Phil.
Moving on. Who would like to let the dog in? Al?
Yep. Both of them.
Go and lie down. Good girls. Okay, so June Sandington writes to me and says, now Heather, the dogs have got the sneezes. No, she wrote, now Heather, it's Big Garden Birdwatch 09. It's the 30th anniversary of the RSPB's Garden Birdwatch. So she said, what are you going to do about it? And so between us, we've come up with a little taster pack of seeds, which includes Wiggly Seed Extra, Wiggly Huskless, Niger Seed, Wiggly Seed Peanuts, Sunflower Hearts, a Suet Holder and a Suet Feast. But do you know much about the Big Garden Birdwatch team?
A bit.
What bits do you know?
But not a lot.
On the 24th and the 25th of January, for 1 hour on either of those days, you feed your birds and then you sit there and you count them. And you've got this check sheet here. Have you got the checklist of garden birds?
On the floor.
Yep. I've got a sheet here that gives us an indication of the top 10.
What have you got then? What's the average garden got?
Well, we've got here, it's listed house sparrow, starling, blackbird, blue-tit, chaffinch, wood pigeon, collared dove, robin, great-tit and goldfinch. And I've read those in order. So the most common Average per garden, house sparrows, a 3.6. You've got starlings, 3.4, blackbirds 2.5, blue tits 2.3, chaffinch 2.2, wood pigeon 1.5, collared dove 1.4, robin 1.3, great tit 1.3, and a goldfinch 1.2.
Of course, you would expect to spot just whole birds.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. I'm not sure what a 0.2 of a goldfinch is. Probably just the tail feathers after the cat has eaten the rest.
Quite interesting, Rich. I see on the recording sheet that I've got in front of me, I would reckon that we would see all of those on there, bar one.
Right.
Which you don't see long-tailed tits around here very often, I don't think.
Oh, you do?
No, yeah,
Not
we
here
have a
so
family of them on the farm, yeah.
But what interests me is I can think of several things that you do see around here that aren't on the list, so that we get loads of wagtails, pied mostly, but some grey as well. We get yellowhammers. Woodpeckers, yeah, several, and green and lesser spotted.
Greater spotted.
Most sociable birds are house sparrows and starlings.
Owls? I suppose not in the hour, is that? I suppose that's why that is.
Count yourself very lucky if you see a song thrush in your garden.
We've got those.
They were really common in 1979, but due to farmer fill, there's been a massive decline that has been seen all across the UK.
Yeah.
I take exception to that because actually,
I thought you would.
The last couple of years, I reckon we've seen more song thrushes in the garden. I had noticed that there weren't many, but I've seen some this year and last year.
Main thing is plant a hedge, isn't it, Al?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how is hedge harvesting going?
Hedge harvesting.
Is the time of year where Wiggly Wiggler sends out all those little plants. People dig them in, and come a few years later, there they are, gorgeous hedges, native species, supporting all sorts of wildlife.
Yeah, well, hedge harvesting's come to a standstill at the moment because it's -6 out there. I think the mealworms are flying out more than the hedge plants at the moment, so the ground is absolutely rock solid.
Why haven't we got any hedging plants
because
in?
you can't dig them up, it's too hard.
And yet there's my brother off on his land drainage machine because he says it's the perfect weather for digging up the ground.
Oh, yeah, and muck spreading and all that goes on when it's frosty, isn't it, Phil?
I think, you know, for your song thrush preservation, though, Hev, rather than... I mean, hedge planting is all important. And, you know, you need some sort of cover for all those lovely, juicy snails to hide in for the song thrushes to feast on. But the most important thing is for gardeners not to use slug pellets. So for our part, people should buy those wonderful sheep fleece pellets that we supply. What are they called? Slug gone, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. But nematodes, you know, that's the most important thing, is not to poison all your the molluscs in your garden. You know, you need some snails to support song thrushes, and you need to avoid the use of any poisons, really.
Do song thrushes like worms, then?
They will eat worms, certainly. And they will eat slugs, but they prefer to eat snails. I mean, snails are a song thrush's staple diet. So if you don't have snails because they've feasted on all the metaldehyde or methiocarb inundated slug pellets that you're putting in your garden, then you're not going to get song thrushes either.
So, if you'd like to join in the Big Garden Birdwatch 09, it's 30 years since it started. I'm not going to ask either of you what you were up to 30 years ago, because I'm sure it would be rude. Join in on the 24th and the 25th of January 2009 if you're in the UK, and download the RSPB's sheet on what you should be recording in your garden, and get yourself equipped, because we've put together the taster pack and it's a stunner. You get about 20 quid's worth of birdseed for a tenner. No money to be made there, Farmer Phil, for you. Have I done a deal on better quantities of seed with better deals? I hope so.
Not yet.
Till next week. If you get a chance to write a review, we've still only got 51 reviews.
51 reviews?
iTunes.
That's quite impressive, isn't it?
We haven't had a review since... October 24th.
Right.
So, if you get a chance to put a review up, please do so. We would be very grateful, and we might even read it out. It's bye from me, Heather, on the Wiggly sofa.
And it's bye from me.
Bye from me.
And bye from me.
This is a public service amount. Bugger. But.
It's all going so well.
Want to do that again?
Yep. So, if you want to get involved in the Big Garden Birdwatch 09, it's been going for 30 years. Wonder what you were doing in 1979, Phil.
1979.
Long time ago. 1979.
How old were you in 1979?
I was just trying to work it out, Rich. It was a difficult calculation.
16.
16.
Oh dear.
Golly.
Long hair.
Yeah.
Bit of a mess.
Yeah. Just lost a cherry.
Dunno.
Possibly not. Well, they had to wait another 4 years for that, didn't they?
I can't believe you said that.
Can't believe I said that.